Right, let's look at the independent scientific assessment of last year's trial badger cull, which, according to this, failed to meet many of its targets.
Well, an investigation for the Department of the Environment has been seen by the BBC. It says the culls in West Somerset and Gloucestershire killed far fewer badgers than was necessary to stop the spread of TB and didn't meet the criteria for humane killing.
Well, with us now is the musician and activist and campaigner on this issue, Brian May. He opposed the cull, and also Phil Latham, who's a dairy farmer and joins us from our studio in Salford. Very good morning to both of you. I mean, Phil Latham, first of all, in Salford. I mean, it does look like now the scientific evidence is that the cull did not work.
I don't think you can say that, actually. I think what we can say is that we're in the first year of a 4-year trial, and that there's room for improvement, and we shall have to look at what has happened and try and devise a better strategy to achieve the targets. I don't think it's actually in doubt at all, though, that we have to try and address the infection level in the badger population, and if we fail to do that, we will carry on watching TB spread from the high-risk areas throughout the rest of the country. So I think there's a lot to do, but I don't think at all we can say that we're at a stage where we failed. It would have been highly unlikely in the first year that we would have got everything right.
Brian May, do you agree with that something still needs to be done and they just need to be improved? It hasn't been a total failure.
Well, Phil's a very reasonable man. Hello, Phil. And it sounds very reasonable, but in fact you can't have a much clearer verdict than this. I mean, the independent expert panel was put there to come to a verdict on whether the cull was effective and whether it was humane. It's neither. There's immense suffering to badgers, and we knew that. I mean, it's impossible to go in and randomly slaughter badgers and make it humane anyway, but these people are shooting them in the dark. They're crawling away. We have first-hand reports of them being shot once, crawling away, and then 10 minutes later being finished off after they've been chased through the bushes. It's quite disgusting and inhumane, in my opinion. But the worst thing of all, perhaps, is that it's not benefiting farmers. The levels that they are culling at, 50%, are the exact perfect levels to spread the disease further in badgers, and that's been shown very, very, very often. So we're not benefiting farmers. It's a huge cost to the taxpayer. They're spending £4,200 per kill of badger. We can now vaccinate badgers at about £120 a head, which is a huge difference. We're already vaccinating badgers. We have a BACVI website. Please visit it. Farmers and Phil, I know you will, but let's see what we can do in terms of vaccination. We can lick this thing. Culling has never worked in any country in the world. You can never defeat a disease by killing. In humans, we had TB problems. We vaccinated. It can be done. And the holy grail, to my view, is vaccinating cattle. That's why it's the BACVI. We need to vaccinate our national herd.
Let's just look at whether this trial actually worked or not. I mean, Phil Latham, I mean, Brian May mentioned the figure of, and this assessment, independent assessment, commissioned by the government, of course, saying that the success rate was below 50%, when the acceptance beforehand was it needed to be above 70% to actually work. I mean, that is surely a failure.
Well, I think what you're looking at actually is the theoretical percentage culling of a theoretical population. Badgers are incredibly hard to count, and all we're actually trying to do is to devise methods to assess the population and do our best.
This is one of the reasons it's ineffective, though. I mean, and it's going to continue to be ineffective.
I think the point is that it is simply a theoretical population, and all we can actually do is do our best. There is no country in the world that has managed to address TB in cattle without addressing the local wildlife reservoir. We know that within Gloucester, when the BCG was assessed for efficacy, that using a triple test, which is the best test we had available, 53% of the badgers in that area tested positive for TB. Now, given the sensitivity of that test, it was likely that 70% of the population of badgers in that area had TB. Now, that's most badgers. And that, I only need one cow in 500 to actually have to be put under TB restrictions.
Yes, but we get drawn into this badger thing, don't we? But we both know that the badgers are a very small part of the problem. Your problem is an ineffective skin test, too much cattle movements, ineffective biosecurity, and the fact that you're not allowed yet to vaccinate your cows. I mean, once we can vaccinate the national herd, you have solved the problem, right?
I think that
We have to prioritise the vaccination.
There are many challenges. You know, there is a cycle of infection, and we can address the cow-to-cow infection through cattle control measures, and we can address the cattle-to-badgers largely through those control measures. But we do know that there's an infected wildlife reservoir in some parts of the country, particularly obviously in the high-risk area, and that to date we have ignored that. And for 25 years, cattle control measures alone have singularly failed to deliver a benefit. In fact, we're all on about killing badgers. I think what's happening actually is we either take the step to proactively create a system to remove infection from badgers, or we allow all badgers throughout the country to develop infection over a period of time. I see that as a really poor conservation policy and something that I wouldn't want to see.
No, we vaccinate. It can be done. We are already vaccinating. Come to us, talk to us, please. Let's sit down and talk about vaccination.
I do accept that vaccination may have a role. I think vaccination will have a role.
You cannot vaccinate and cull at the same time. It doesn't work.
I think vaccination may have a role, particularly in the naive areas where badgers remain uninfected. But you know,
most of those badgers that got killed would have been perfectly healthy. We know that. In the RBCT, it was like 1% that were really sick.
The Chief Scientific Officer in Wales quit his job in April 2012 on the basis of the fact that vaccinating a heavily burdened and infected badger population was a waste of time.
That's a red herring, Phil, and you know that. Vaccination worked in humans, it can work in cattle, and it can work in badgers.
There is no scientific paper yet that shows that vaccinating badgers will reduce bovine TB in cattle.
There is no scientific paper which says that culling the way you are doing it will work. In fact, all the evidence says that culling the way you are doing it will make matters worse. It will spread the disease faster. What do you say to that?
I think, well, that's the challenge. The challenge is one of methodology, not one of the science.
The challenge is...
Lord Krebs.
But just on that point, in terms of your personal experience, this independent report has said that it could possibly have made matters worse. Following, have you noticed anything being better?
I think it's far too early to make that assessment. I think what the trial set out to look at the methodology of. We know that we need to cull badgers because that is the only way that we can address it sensibly and seriously.
No, we don't know we need to control. No, please, no, come on. These are not theoretical badgers that are being killed. These are real animals with real feelings and real family groups. You are destroying them. This is wrong from the start.
They are also mostly in some areas really diseased and dying slowly through TB. The case that badgers carry TB is well proven. The trial was set up simply to assess the best methodology in order to achieve it. Now,
we've got to leave. We have got to leave it here, but just very quickly, it's quite interesting. Have you not had this conversation before?
We do. We tweet to each other, and we vowed to meet a few times. We haven't managed it yet. We should, Phil. Shall we sit down and talk? Do you want to sit down and talk?
Brian, as you know, I think a less adversarial and a more consensual approach to trying to get TB back in under control is what we need. But for 25 years, we've had cattle-only measures. For 25 years, we've had political apathy.
And people have been spontaneously culling for 25 years.
OK, we'll leave it there.
Well, you've found agreement and that you should meet and talk further.
And we'll come along and film it if we may. All right, Phil Latham in Salford, thank you very much indeed. Brian May in the studio.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.